Hello, my name is Will, and I like educating people and hearing myself talk, and today we are talking about AI. Why AI good and bad, but nuanced. You need to know exactly three things about me. One, I hate tech bros. Two, I work professionally as an AI ML engineer. Three, I think healthcare is a human right. I don't know why that last one is in there, but I thought it was important. Seriously, I will try to stay neutral and give nuanced takes, because I think anyone can hold bold opinions. But it takes reason and numbers to back them up, and I hope I have provided enough of that today. We can start with what and when was the first AI? Well, big data and deep learning first took off in the 2010s, when people figured out they could use the GPU for training instead of CPUs, but that doesn't seem like the beginning. Well, you could point that large language models, LLMs, were based on neural networks, so we could go back to the first neural network in Perceptron 1. Another place you could go is the father of computers. I personally like this one, Alan Turing, with his Turing machine. And you could trace these algorithms back to a million places, really. The point I'm trying to make is there's no singular thing called AI. It's a dozen or so algorithmic technologies, so it's really important that you say what you mean. Now, my job is to educate you. I hope that I will comfort you and make you feel superior. Because you know that your coworker Brad, who won't stop talking about his tech stocks, doesn't actually know what he's thinking about. First things first, AI is not going to take your job. It can't count the strawberry R's. You think it's coming for your accounting position? No. Secondly, AI is not going to take your job. See the first point. Next, AI is not going to take your job. After that, AI is not going to take your job. Almost at the end, I'll say, AI is not going to take your job. Then wrapping up everything, we'll talk about AI is not going to take your job. And I need you to understand this. AI is never, and will never, become Ultron. It's not going to become the Terminator. It cannot decide whether syrup goes on waffles or coffee cake. We are not a firmware update away from Skynet. Okay? And it's not just that we're not there yet. The current idea of AI, specifically LLMs, which people think of most generally as AI, is just fundamentally not that. And that's because AI does not think. It is a glorified autocorrect with a gym membership. If I told you, what would you answer? But we don't care about you, we care about AI. And do you know what AI cares about? Gambling, that's right, just like your grandparent at a Vegas slot machine. It loves to rip that shit over and over and over. And just like the Vegas casino, the odds are stacked. Like 80% of the time, the model will get a good answer, and then we rip that shit again. Woohoo! And that's the big breakthrough. That's literally ChatGPT. Vegas for grammar. No thoughts, no dreams, no inner monologue, no childhood trauma of their dad leaving to get milk one day and never returning. It's just math. And it probably sounds like I get dumber and dumber and I hate AI. But randomness and prediction is good at speeding up trivial things. Things that have a lot of data and don't rely on human life. That's a great application. Now, let's think critically. Does this sound like the LLM is thinking? Absolutely not! To demonstrate this, we're going to use my friend Bobbert. Bobbert is going to go into this box. Now, before we stuff him into the box of eternal darkness, you might ask, why Bobbert? And I'll tell you. It's because he's illiterate. Specifically, he can't read or write, or understand Chinese. Which is really important because that's actually his whole job. But it'd be silly and unethical to expect Bobbert to know how to translate Chinese if he doesn't have any way of reading. So here's a flowchart to help him. Something along the lines of, if you see X, put Y in the tube. Now here's what everything looks like. You put in a character, and Bobbert matches the symbols on his flowchart and gives a response back. Does Bobbert understand Chinese? No, that's silly. He's illiterate. That's why he plays League of Legends. And that's basically AI, Bobbert with electricity. Speaking of which, I wonder if AI could play Yumi. And that's the crux of it. AI will never think. Yes, pattern recognition is how humans learn, but there's a difference. LLM intelligence, specifically, is like 5 years old. But the difference is, this intelligence is about 5 years old, and also, LLMs require the drinking water of a small city, and the electricity of entire countries. In my opinion, say what you want, but in my opinion, that's not evolution, that's just brute force. Which, small side tangent, is literally how the models are developed. Like, I know these are supposedly the smartest people at the cutting edge of technology, but seriously, how is it the best idea you came up with just throwing money at the problem? This method is done. It won't go anywhere else. Anyways, now we're getting into some of the math. You know, the spicy stuff. Compute. Dimensions. Stuff you might have forgotten in high school. But you know what you didn't forget? Maps. They at least make sense. Right? Right? But maybe instead of your 2D girlfriend, we're talking about thousands of D. Massive loads of D. Dimensions, of course. It's not important what that looks like or represents. Just know it is incomprehensible. Now, how many words are in the English language? Trick question. No one knows. It's stupidly large. Just kidding. I fooled you. It's right there. 600,000. And in total, of all of the languages that these LLMs really care about, something over 1 billion parameters. That number is so stupidly large, you cannot fathom the sheer size of it. But let's try. If you wanted to make $1 million, just put away $50 a day. And in 55 years, you could be a millionaire. If you were pushing drugs on the street at age 1, you might have that by age 60. If you put away like $1,500 a month, that's like an entire half paycheck of like a really good job. But it's, you know, it's semi-doable, what, right? But if you wanted to be a billionaire, you would have to put $500 a day aside for 5,500 years. And you could own $1 billion. But now that you're a billionaire, you might be invited to a private island in New York that certainly will never be in the news. Now, these models have multiple billions of parameters, or word-like structures, right? And they only have a couple thousand dimensions to store those parameters. And so my question is, does that sound like it'll fit? Well, let's explore this concept. Imagine a New York City skyline. Each apartment has a coordinate, but how do you distinguish between the apartment number and the floor or the room? You don't. Let's think about the Tower of Breakfast. Waffles and pancakes and coffee cakes, they're all breakfast foods. You know what else is a breakfast food? Hash browns. Do you know what goes with waffles and pancakes, syrup, and also some freaks like peanut butter, but that's neither here nor there. The important part is that they're close because they're related. But all of them were deceived, for another breakfast food was made, and together it went with ketchup. What kind of breakfast food should I eat this morning, ChatGPT? And instead of getting waffles and syrup, I get coffee cake and ketchup. This is how hallucinations work, right? We stack all of the words together because there's not enough physical space for a billion words, and then when it gets confused about which floor to visit, it just chooses the wrong word sometimes. This is how we get things like, what's 5 plus 7? Searching Pope Leo's Wikipedia page. Now let's put on some serious masks and look at this data. This is a graph plotting the amount of computing power we have used and the varying amounts of data over the years. Obviously, this is incredibly old, and the problem is actually much, much worse, so I prepared this second graph. This is all of the models over the years plotted with their amount of training data. Here's the trend. A lot of people don't talk about the limits of computer computation. Right now, all of computing runs on binary, zeros or ones. You might have heard of that. In a way, that's good because you don't actually need to measure how much, only if or not. Barring some quantum computing nonsense, there is a physical limitation of how fast electricity can move, and we are approaching that physical limit of computation. And that can't be solved with throwing more money at the problem. And that's like saying, if I stack enough waffles, eventually they'll become a human being, and that's what we call stupid. Now here's where I return to this point. AI won't take your job. That's because you're unemployed and play video games all day. Just kidding. In the wise words of a YouTube comment I found, replacing people with AI is like replacing a carpenter with a hammer. Completely ignoring the ethical problems with firing someone for no reason, tools cannot replace people. You can help offload the strain of a job, but the people still know all the things and know how to do all the things. Companies may think that efficiency equals replacement, but the mental load still remains untouched. Even a carpenter still needs to plan and measure all of the wood, even if they have a magic toolbox that does all of their work, right? And that's the long and short of it. The whole corporate model that these companies are chasing is based on a false idea. Like, it's sold to them by tech companies in Silicon Valley, right? It's a great marketing scheme. But it's making this massive blob of expectations that could really, like, pop at any moment. And, like, it's almost like a... Now, first of all, before we talk about the boring economics of this situation, go watch Hank Green's video. I'll leave a link to that here. Now, on to the money. Did you know that OpenAI has never had a profitable quarter in their entire public history? If your lemonade stand lost $100 a day, you would stop. But instead, we have Bubble. Now, the money cycles between different tech giants. OpenAI invests in their hardware, and the hardware invests in the people that make the hardware, and then the people that make the hardware invest in the end product, OpenAI. And then everyone reports a profit and Wall Street claps. And this is because you might have heard of the term AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. The funny thing is it doesn't exist. It's undefined. It's kind of like Silicon Valley's biblical rapture. And this is because if you never define the finish line, You never lose the race. Public companies always have to grow for their stock. The promise always has to escalate. More compute, more hype, more money, more GPUs. And as soon as Wall Street thinks that you're done growing, your stock deflates by 30% or something stupid. So we get stuck in this insane loop of Silicon Valley trying to convince the Wall Street that they can convince the public that AI is so good that there's enough demand that Wall Street gets convinced not to jump ship. And that's stupid, in my opinion. Hello? Who is this? Do I know you? You have my wife and kids? I don't even have kids! Now, I told you I'm a data scientist. I literally work building AI products for ethical sources, I hope. I deeply believe that this is an incredible piece of technology. All of the algorithms. But you have to apply it in the right ways. Really narrow problems with small ethical impact and maximum oversight are where this kind of technology shines. Simulating protein synthesis has shortened a lot of new drug research, which has led to several cancer treatments getting developed in the past year. It's not like AI is replacing the lab tech, it's speeding up the physical labor, and that's exactly what the tool should do, in my opinion. And that kind of raw data is really good for AI, because once again, it's a probability machine. When it's not run by greedy tech giants, it's just a long list of algorithms, right? One example that I found recently was the Taiwanese Central Weather Agency. They partnered with NVIDIA to basically make an entire Earth where this model simulated everything. And it didn't matter the details. All that mattered is that it could predict based on past events. And it just flipped a coin a bunch of times. Like the best YouTube video you could have asked for.
I flipped a coin a million bajillion times, and this is probably what's happening.
And it ended up being 3,000 times less energy usage and 1,000 times faster. And this is the kind of thing that I really love to highlight to people, because yes, LLMs specifically have way too much environmental impact. Data centers are really bad. This does not take a data center in the same way. It does not take a million bajillion gigawatts hours of energy to run this. This is good AI, in my opinion. And that's the conclusion, is that AI good when used correctly, for the right reasons. Maybe AI good and bad. AI not your overlord, not your savior, it is tool. A very powerful, overhyped, expensive, at sometimes, tool. But it can help doctors, it can help researchers, it can help you draft emails faster. Don't use it for therapy. Don't use it as a girlfriend. Please. It cannot think. It cannot want, it cannot understand, and it definitely will not replace the carpenter. Maybe AI good, maybe AI bad. Probably a little bit of both. Bottom text.